I'm Mark Green. So we're going to start this webinar. So firstly, thank you so much indeed all for coming. I was just online there with Glenn from the Air Charter Association and Martin Harrison, just discussing a few bits and pieces. We're going to bring those guys in a little bit later just to discuss from an operator's perspective, as well as obviously from the Air Charter Association on an official capacity, if you want to call it that. So let me just introduce about why we're doing this. The reason we want to be doing this is because for the last 45 years, in 1975, we entered the EU. That was incidentally a fine year when I was born, in fact. But everybody worked very well. We all collaborated together on a nice, friendly way. And to be honest, just because things have changed in the last 4 weeks, we still know the words to the song that we were all singing before for the last 45 years. So the idea about this is that we just want to kind of just create some goodwill with a view to perhaps sending out a letter to all of the top management at the air companies, suggesting that we all play nicely. You know, there's enough toys in the playground for everybody. It's lasted the last 45 years. Everybody's collaborated really well, and that's really where it's at in terms of our industry. You know, it's a tough industry where everybody works very, very hard. We know that we have lots of problems. We have humans and machines, which are two of the things that cause a lot of headaches to a lot of people. I had an AOG today, which was a bit stressful, but we managed to get through that. But the last thing we want to be doing is now having added complications with people objecting to what were simple flights in the past. So this really spawned from a LinkedIn post that I made, and I'm known for being a bit of I've been called ranty in the past, which I'm okay with. I'm all right with that. But you know, after 25 years in this industry, working as an operator as well as a broker, you've got a voice and you've got an opinion. So I think when something is not happening the way that you want to see it happening, then you want to gather a few like-minded people, perhaps, to get involved and maybe make a positive change. We know that the Air Charter Association, as well as the Civil Aviation Authority and all of the aviation authorities within Europe, are working very hard to get the agreements in place so that everybody can now have freedom again to operate. But in the interim, we're going to need something else, because with all the best will in the world, we all know how slowly governments move. And guess what? The government has got quite a lot of things going on at the moment. So they've got other focuses that may or may not be taking their focus away from our little industry, which is a wonderful industry, but something that does need to be resolved. And there's a few issues that we want sorting out nice and quickly. So I know that Glenn and the Civil Aviation have been working, but I just wanted to really get this out there to say, look, we're all friends here. We've all been friends for a long time. We've got some fantastic relationships in place that we've built over many, many, many years. And there's absolutely no reason why that should change just because we're not in the EU anymore as a United Kingdom country. The operators, my understanding was there was something like 10 to 25%, depending on the operator model, was taken with flights that are intra-European. Now, if you take that away from a UK operator, that's a massive impact, because a lot of those flights will be empty leg sales, which, as we all know, and certainly an operator would know that, that's where the money is ready to be made. The margins are tight in our industry, especially as an operator, and you want to be able to sell those aircraft that are transient. You want to be able to sell those empty legs. So if you've got your aircraft in Malaga, you want to fly to Paris, you know, you want to be making revenue on that. And it's not just the turnover, because you can't spend turnover. You make good profit on those flights. But if you can't do that, you get people objecting, then that's just obstructive, and it's just not the way the industry should be. And I think we need to get back to a less abrasive way of doing things. And only 4 weeks in, we don't want the rot to set in and too many people to start putting their hand up left, right, and centre when we're just making a nice simple flight from Malaga to Paris, which we can do with our eyes closed. But all of a sudden, people are being asked for 5,000 euros here, 25,000 euros there by operators who are not wanting us to do that. It's just, it's not cricket, let's be honest. So I just wanted to say, maybe bring in Martin at this point. Martin from a little jet company. As an operator of a couple of small airplanes, obviously the main bulk of the work he's doing is intra-European work, or certainly from UK to Europe, and arguably within that, there's intra-European flying as well. And I know that Martin has had a few incidents himself as well since Brexit. So Martin, do you think you could just expand a little bit on how Brexit has impacted your way of working and the challenges that have appeared?
Yeah, of course. Of course. So obviously, all of you brokers know. Obviously, UK operators now have to apply for permits to get into the EU, and we do appreciate we can't always say yes that we're going to get the permits in time, and we are trying our best. All of the UK operators. I mean, we've all been speaking to each other, seeing which CAAs give a better response time than others. But when you ask us how long do you think it's going to take, we're being honest, we honestly don't know. It depends on how many staff the CA have on that day, how quickly they can get our response, and do we have certain security plans in place, you know, et cetera, because there are certain rules. So like I was saying to Mark earlier, if we don't have a certain security plan for Spain, we can only go there 3 times a season. So that means we can only go 3 times from March to September. And obviously then September to March the next year, we can only go 3 times. So, you know, it's going to make us struggle because Spain's one of our biggest markets, as most UK operators is. So permits just give us some time. We are trying, and obviously empty legs we are losing money on because it depends if they let us do cabotage. And VAT's just come up as an issue. So obviously UK operators now might have to pay VAT on services in the EU, and obviously that doesn't help our margins at all, and it makes us less competitive against EU operators.
Well, exactly. That's part of the reason that I wanted you involved in this. And you know, I know there's all manner of UK operators that have joined this call, and so thanks very much to that, and equally thanks to all the European operators that have joined us as well. I see many on there. But so those challenges are going to be particularly interesting when it comes to summertime, when the frequency of these flights, when you are going to Spain, you know, 3 times you have a permit, you'll do that in 10 days. If you're a light jet operator, certainly, or a super light operator, you'll be going backwards and forwards to Spain, and that's going to be your bread and butter during the summer season, surely. So do you think that we need to really push on for places like Spain or perhaps France, where there's a massive, obviously, hub of UK people that are flying there from the UK, and obviously with that in mind, that means that a lot of aircraft from the UK are going to be transient down there, and then for the ability to make those flights home, which are obviously revenue making.
Yeah, I mean, it could help, but I think also from the operator side, it's good for us as operators to start working together. And the reason I say that is, with the non-objections, you know, it's good for Little Jet to say, I don't know, to a French operator, all right, we'll take this trip, but next time we'll let you quote it and we'll let you see if you can get it. And it's good just for the operators talk to each other. I know brokers like to get involved, and it's fine, but sometimes it can cause a lot of strain between certain operators, because when a broker rings saying, why have you objected this operator's flight, they sometimes get confused and think they're speaking on behalf of that operator, but they're not. They're a completely different company. And, you know, we then get an email saying, we're not, you know, why have they had someone question it? We are trying our best, and it'd be good just for operators to work together in the future to see if there's a way where we can all work together and say, well, actually, we can all win something out of this.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm sure most people on the call agree with that as well. That if everybody's working together, there's more than enough business to go around. You know, everybody's been working in this industry for, most people, certainly for a long time, and very few people have fallen by the wayside, and that's because we all collaborate together and we all work very well together. And as I said, just because something's changed, we're all still friends. So let's behave in a friendly way. You know, the last thing we want to be seeing is casualties from the UK market or even from the European market. And the only way you get that is by everybody working together. You know, there are certainly, in the last 45 years, there are many companies who have fallen by the wayside for many reasons. And the reason those have fallen by the wayside is mainly probably because they don't have the right financial infrastructure, and you know, they're selling £10 notes for a fiver, which you can do for a certain period of time. But now the opportunity is there that we could really kind of come together and collaborate properly. You know, so you know, if you want to be doing a flight to Munich, you don't want to be objected by a German operator. Likewise, if a German operator wants to come to the UK, we don't want to be objecting to that either. So it's almost like a Mexican standoff to a point where everybody's holding that gun to everybody's head. But actually, you know, we need to just put our weapons down and just say, look, come on, it all worked before, and nobody went out of business before. So let's just make this happen and keep everything on a friendly plane, no pun intended, and that will make everything a lot more palatable. There's too much stress in this industry as there is, I think, and that's kind of the purpose, I think, of trying to make everybody collaborate.
And one thing I just want to bring, obviously, a lot of operators know this, but brokers may not. Pets have changed dramatically with traveling with pets. So just bear with all the operators. We're still getting our heads around it, because it's actually harder now for us to take pets into Europe. It's actually easier for us to bring them back home, but it's harder to take them out into Europe. So just bear with us all. We are still learning, because DEFRA is still publishing it all, and they're just giving us a bit of time just to understand what we need to do.
Okay, that's interesting. Probably we could maybe get, I wonder if we get someone like Liz Schickel or something to maybe give a bit of information from DEFRA at some point. Maybe Glenn, we'll talk about it later maybe, but perhaps we can get in touch with Liz at Farnborough with a view to updating us on the rules, because I'm sure she's pretty au fait with all of the rules and regs for obviously importing the cats and dogs and whatever else, but she's probably also very au fait with the rules and regs for exporting them too. So I wonder maybe if that's something that the Air Charter Association could potentially come up with for their members, just to make everything a little bit more clear. Yeah, thank you. I saw the thumbs up. Thank you very much. Okay, Martin. Well, thanks very much indeed for that. That's really appreciated. And yeah, well, I'm sure there'll be some questions and answers at the end. By the way, if anybody does have a question, there's the chat button down the bottom. Feel free to hit that. Although we are going to be having a Q&A at the end if anybody does want to ask anything important or non-important. So that's Martin's perspective from the UK operator side of things. I just wanted to speak in terms of a broker perspective, because as brokers, back in the day, brokers had a bit of a bad rep many years ago, and now we're now working with, we consider ourselves certainly, and I know all the brokers that I see on here consider themselves as partners of the operators, and the operators are partners of the brokers. So we all have to work together as well, because as a broker, without any supply, we don't have anything to sell. So we need to make sure that we're supporting you guys, whether it's the EU operators or the UK brokers or the UK operators. It's oh, okay. Mike, I'll answer that in a second. But the one thing that's clear is that brokers have spent a great deal of time generating themselves now to be more friendly, less aggressive, working transparently with our operator partners, and that has forged some really strong relationships. So now if we're seeing an operator putting their hand up and objecting to a flight, I had a situation, just as the example, which was posted on my social media for a Malaga to France flight, and a French operator objected to that. They don't even have the right airplane for that job, and it's not even geographically in the right place. So they were never going to be able to operate that flight, and they wanted 25,000 euros to give us the permit for that, which is ludicrous. I mean, the whole trip value was 12 grand, right? So it's just stupid. They were just doing it to be obstructive. What the operator doesn't know is that, or maybe didn't consider, is that me as a broker, I am their client as well. So what they're not considering here is, yeah, okay, they're putting this big obstacle in front of the operator here, saying, you haven't got the permits, too bad. But actually, that's affecting me as a broker, and that doesn't sit well with me. So I have to then consider, if these people are going to be behaving like that, and I have a choice about where I put my business, do I want to be using an operator that has just degraded their long-term relationship we've had, and they've just eked away at it a little bit, and it's made me think that maybe they're not such a great company after all, because I can put that business on the CJ or the Global or whatever else. I can put that business pretty much anywhere I like, within reason. So I don't want to be using an operator that is actually causing ruptions within the industry. So from a broker's perspective, we do have a certain sway, and I think that's why I wanted to just get everybody together to get this letter, and from a broker's perspective, with the support of our European operator partners and the UK brokers and the associations, to get that out there to those big bosses to say, let's just stop doing this, because you're actually harming your own relationship with what is actually a decent client for you. You certainly wouldn't do that to a direct client. You wouldn't put an objection in front of them and say, sorry, you can't do that. So why are you doing it to a broker? Because a broker is giving you as much business, if not more, than many direct operators, or many direct clients. So surely that's just harmful, and it certainly isn't helpful. causes a great deal of stress. I mean, you also have to consider that when we're looking at a UK operator that's transient somewhere, we're looking to get a flight home. That's obviously an empty leg, right? And the price is lower. And we want to be encouraging new users to this industry. We have to. So we need new blood. We need to have people who are concerned about COVID, who previously haven't chartered. You know, they'll think about, there was 10% of the people who can afford to charter are chartering. The other 90% don't consider it as a necessity. Well, now there's a great deal of sway moving towards these people do consider that actually it's not ostentatious. It's not something, it's not a waste of money just to have your picture taken on Instagram, click, 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 there's me on a citation. Now they're considering that they can afford it. So they're just going to do it because they want to do it. But the last thing we want to be doing to them is giving them a price of X and then suddenly having to say, well, actually, you know, really sorry, we didn't get the permits on that because it was a British aeroplane. And we're really sorry about that, but the price has now gone up by another 3,000 euros. That's not what we do. You know, you want to give a client a price, you want to stick to it, because especially if it's a new user who's unfamiliar with the ways and workings of how private jets work, surely the last thing you want to be doing is upping the price, because the first thing they're going to think is that you're probably fleecing them, or they think that, well, you know, that whole private jet thing, that isn't as easy as I thought it was, because it was this price and now it's that price. Oh, and now they're saying about this and that and something else. They're not interested in knowing about the politics that goes on with permits and whatever else. They're interested in getting the best price, the best service, and a smooth transition from point A to point B. And obviously, if people are objecting to that with certain operators, that's just making the whole process more complicated. And it will, I think, certainly, it will discourage new users from what is potentially a massive pool, not even a pool. This is an ocean of new users to the private jet market. The only way we can get them online and get them flying with private jets to make their private jet booking easy. And that's surely got to be the most important thing, because we need to generate new, young people within the industry that are flying. They can afford it, so let's help them spend it. You know, that's perhaps a little bit controversial, but you know, let's be honest. The market is always up and down, but now there's a massive, massive potential that this market could really take off in the summertime, and it's all going to go crazy. Because once the vaccine starts kicking in, once the places start opening up again, once people are able to travel again, not just from the UK, but also from the other European countries and America and Asia and the Middle East as well. They love Europe. So let them come, let them help our economies. And the only way we can do that is by making that process, if you like, more easy. So, sorry, I'm just going to have a little look on the questions that have come in. Oh, there's a lot of them, Jesus. Okay. Martin, did you want to answer this? So what they're saying is, Mike Ryan has asked, so are you saying that the UK operator can only fly 3 times to Spain in a year? I think that's a season, Mike, but it's to all intents and purposes, it's pretty much the same thing. So Martin, did you want to just...
yeah, I was just replying to on the chat, sorry. So what from our understanding today with the Spanish CAA is UK operators need to have a security program approved by the UK CAA. Then it needs to be approved by the Spanish CAA, and once that's approved, which it does take a while, then we have not unlimited, but unlimited access as long as we get permits for it. But until then, UK operators can only go in 3 times a season. So that's summer season, so that's 6 months. So it's every 6 months it's renewed.
Okay. Can you expand on what you mean? What is this security requirement? And is any of the other operators going through that?
You'd have to, if you're an operator yourself, you're going to have to email the Spanish CAA to discuss it with them. It's every UK operator needs to discuss it with the Spanish CAA.
And does this form part of your AAC and the terms on which you operate? Is it a specific requirement, or is it? I mean, could you expand on what this? Is it forms to fill in, or how do you get over?
We need to do a whole security program, so it's a manual. You have to give it to the UK CAA to approve. Then once the UK CAA approves that, you then have to send it to the Spanish CAA. They then have to approve it, and then you get the access. But until then, you only get 3 times every 6 months. And yes, we agree in our AOC it has got a security manual, but that unfortunately is not what they want.
So is there any way that all the operators here, the UK operators, can collaborate, and once somebody's written it that's been accepted, you could actually share that document so that everybody could get it through fairly quickly? Is that something that could happen? Because obviously when the masks come off, we want to be able to fly from the UK to the Spain, and then also is that going to happen in France, Germany, and all the others? Do you have to have separate ones for each one of those?
We haven't had any problems with them so far. It's only the Spanish that have had this.
The Germans do. Sorry to interrupt, Martin. The Germans do also have a requirement for a security program, but there are readily available templates for the German side. But the Spanish seem have. I think one of the difficulties with the Spanish is that, particularly for smaller operators, don't need for the UK CAA's requirements to actually have a standalone security program. If they're below a certain weight limit, I'm not sure, Martin, if you know what that limit is, but
below 10 tons, I think, if I remember correctly.
Right. So yeah, that's where they don't actually need to have it for the UK CAA approvals. They obviously have certain elements of their operating manuals which cover them on their security processes. We've seen quite a handful of members that are struggling with that specific issue, and particularly with Spain. And we've been working with them, trying to get them a template to do that. So if there is any operator that's got a template that they'd be happy to share as a draft, let me have it, and I can get it through to a few people that are struggling with that issue.
So Mark, is the major issue UK to Europe flights that you want to highlight, or is it the cabotage flights? So it's a G-registered aircraft wanting to fly between Nice and Ibiza. Is it the second one that was of more concern?
Yeah, I think that is, because I think when you're flying UK to another country, then obviously that's a lot easier to get through than it is when you're performing cabotage. So what we want to do here is probably get some non-object. We want to make sure that everybody is non-objecting to these flights. So you're right. If Martin's aircraft or John's aeroplane or whoever's there, or Joe's aircraft, I can see Joe in the corner there. If her aircraft is sitting in Nice and somebody wants to make a flight down to Ibiza, then, to be honest, the French or the Spanish could put their hand up and object to that flight, even if there's nothing really available in those areas that could be anywhere near competitive. You know, I understand you kind of get it in the old days, donkeys years ago, where you get objections from somebody flying from point A to point B because they've got the same airplane sitting on the ramp at that airplane at point A. But very often, I have my Malaga to Nice flight. There's not really a hub of aircraft in Malaga, and there's not really a hub of aircraft in Nice. You know, there's a few, but not that many. And
okay,
that's the major issue.
Okay, that's the major issue. So can I bring in Bernhard here? So Bernhard, just on the other side as a European operator, are you able to fly between Biggin Hill and Edinburgh?
No, only for positioning. So if we basically position aircraft, but not commercially with passengers.
So I'm guessing really the issue is and maybe, you know, as a European, Bernhard, you know, what do you think of all of this? If you can't fly in the UK has decided to leave. Realistically, should G-registered aircraft be afforded cabotage if you can't fly in the UK? And you know, I think that's the sort of higher political issue. Do we all have to recognise that?
I mean, totally agree with you. I think we should do everything possible to get this, I don't know how you call it, bilateral, multilateral or whatever agreements between UK and European Union. That's why it's here for, to get the way paved. I mean, this is insane. We should go back to the mode we had on the 31st of December. That's it.
That's exactly where. It comes from both ends on this. Obviously, you know, we appreciate as a British operator, we appreciate there are probably more intra-European flights for a British operator to gain than there are for a foreign EU operator to gain doing a domestic British flight. If your aircraft is in Luton, then surely you want to send it to Edinburgh if you get a trip on that. Absolutely, and I think that's where Martin kind of made the point earlier that. That's only going to happen if people don't object to these things, if people can work together and form collaborative
Mark, you said it, and I think even our great association, the air charters, there's enough work for everybody of
Absolutely
us.
right. That's my point.
And we spend now energy and time on those things. This is insane.
I'm with you, Bernardo. I'm absolutely with you, and that's what I'm saying. This whole thing is not just about, you know, save the British. No, this is about save the collaboration that we've all built over the last, God knows, 20, 30 years of everybody working together. The Brits working with the Austrians, working with the Germans working with the French. You know, everybody working together, because there is more than enough business to go around, and that is really. If your aircraft is sitting in Luton and it's the right price, it's the right aeroplane for that job, you should absolutely be able to do that flight, because you've been able to do it since you established your business at Globair, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it tomorrow if you want to do that. But that needs collaboration from the UK CAA as well as the British operators as well, to ensure that they're not objecting or there's no issues with you making that cabotage flight, because there should be no reason why that is there. It's
Mark,
yes.
Sorry. One quick question. Sorry, Freddie Maidens. Just a quick question. How, putting aside the permits and putting aside the cabotage, how many objecting European suppliers do we actually have? Because at the moment, I've only come across one or two. I'm not going to mention the names for obvious reasons, but we can say, surely as brokers all together, we should be like, guys, look, we have huge buying power with you, French operator. How can we stop this happening?
Sorry, someone's just walked into the office.
Don't worry.
Yeah, but Freddie, we have to. I think it, of course, it matters, but I think we all should work that this not becomes a trend and you know, an attitude and I don't know, a fashion. This has to stop immediately. It makes simply no sense.
Absolutely. I think the answer to your question, Freddie, is I think there are definitely. I know of, I believe, 4 companies that are doing it. And I'm not a massive broker. You know, I don't think there's anybody from one of the. Neil's here, Neil Harvey.
Yeah.
I don't know if Neil's had any. He's obviously does a great deal more business than myself, but you know, I don't know if Neil, if you noticed many objections yourself, or is it just a very niche number of people?
No, I think at the minute we're looking at a small number. I think Freddie is right, and I actually believe that some of those people are probably making a statement more than we're ever going to issue an invoice for your 20,000 euros.
Yeah,
it'd be quite good evidence to have if someone had issued the invoice. To be honest,
I had that, and they issued the invoice, and we paid it.
You paid it.
We had to. It was £175,000 flight, and they charged us 4,000 euros. Enough. If not, we lost the whole flight. We had to do it, and we did get the money back, but credit against future flight bookings with them.
I'm amazed.
Yeah,
absolutely amazed.
We had to in the end. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I get you. You get yourself put in a position like that. I sympathise with you, Freddie. Really, I do. Yeah. But I think Neil's absolutely right. You know, there's a small number, and probably they're making a bit of a statement. But that said, the statement is harmful. You know, the operator that objected to my flight, I'd be hard pushed to book them again. And Freddie, so that goes on to your point. You're absolutely right. You know, you're going to be minded if you have a choice between 2 operators and one of them objected to a flight. I'm sure you're going to be booking it with the other one.
Exactly.
Because you know, mud sticks, and you know, it is just harmful to that relationship if suddenly there's a big problem that they get. That it causes you a headache. You know, I don't know what day of the week. I bet it was a Friday night at about 5 o'clock. And that's, you know, because you can resolve these things if it's a Wednesday afternoon or a Monday morning. You can normally get these things resolved. But once it comes along to, you know, Friday afternoon or a Saturday, you're over a barrel. You're committed. You know, you might have paid the operator, and all of a sudden they go, oh, by the way, yeah, $4,000. Yeah. I sympathise, but as I say,
I think something like that just has to go back to the national authority of the company that's doing it.
Yeah.
And I think if Bernard's point is correct too, that we can all work together, but I think at the minute it will take European operators too to go to their authorities and try and work that out with them too, because at the moment we're 1 month into a complicated framework. And it's already
can I say something?
Can I jump in, Mark?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Greg, I know you had your hand up there as well. But if you just bear with me 1 second, we'll come remember your question. But I just thought it'd be worth pointing out on this issue from the ACA's point of view. We've had 2 incidents that have been reported to us. and we were able to take that to the DfT negotiating team, and they spoke with their opposing numbers in the European authority, and that operator, the operator that was highlighted in these, was spoken to and action taken. The authorities in Europe are taking a serious action against if they have an evidenced issue raised, and we've got the conduit to the DfT and the right contacts to raise these things. I believe from what we've seen, it's a very isolated, and sort of going back to Freddie's question, very isolated. It seems to be one or two brokers that were making that statement, making those potentially just looking to make a little bit of quick cash out of the change of UK operator status. But these seem to be reasonably isolated, and I know that action has been taken on the ones that have been raised to us. So if you do have specific issues, by all means contact me out after this and let me know. I can confirm to you whether it's the same one that we've already dealt with, or if it is another one. I'm happy to take that up and push it through. That no European authority wants operators in their country sort of acting in that way, in an unprofessional way, and they will raise it with them and discuss it with them, and that apparently has stopped the issue with the one that has been discussed. So Greg, did you have a question?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I've got a question. Is here anyone who is against this cooperation and who will be objecting the flights? Is there anyone here who is not sharing the message that you all guys before me said? Is there anyone here?
I don't believe there's anybody. So to answer Tanya's question as well, actually.
Yeah. So the thing is,
I don't think there's anybody here that has
all the Brexit was all last minute things. Yeah. So probably someone forgot to regulate that. Isn't a job for, let's say, EBAA for the organization to just help us to get into some kind of new legislation or propose a solution between UK and Europe? It's ridiculous. You know, a few years ago when the Germany introduced a similar law, it was, I don't know, 6 years ago. I needed to ask 19 operators if I can perform the flight, and 18 of them said immediately yes, go ahead, and one said no. And I flew into this guy and I asked him, listen, why? What's the reason? And the answer was, I don't know. I was just asked if I object, and then I thought that, yeah, I have no idea. Then I said no. So of course there are some people, they would like to make some quick cash on that, but most of the people, they just don't. I think they just don't understand. Yeah, that's what happened. That we have new reality. The rules and regulations that they disappeared, and the UK is treated as a like a non-European country. So I think, you know, all of you guys, we can of course go to our CAAs and ask them to do something about it, but I think we need to join together and we need to find a representative body that will talk to both European Union and the UK CAAs to find a solution as quick as possible. I'm afraid that it will take months, at least, even if not years, but till that time, 100%, we need to cooperate as it used to be before. So if I'm asked if I object the flight for the UK operator, of course, no. I mean, go ahead. If you want this with the broker, that if I lost it against the broker because you were better from some reasons, go ahead. The next time I'll try to beat you, but in a fair and market way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Greg. It's a really good point, well made. Obviously, the EBAA, the first part of that word is European, and Britain is still European. Yeah, we're not in the EU, but we're still in Europe, right? We're still a European country. So I think, with Glenn and with EBAA, you're absolutely right that they should be putting together perhaps some sort of collaborative body that is able to I don't know, even reach out to people. And that's part of what this is about, that I wanted to put here, because as you quite rightly said, this could take months, it could take years even to get everybody ticking the box. I know that I know today there has been some very positive news from Germany and Spain and other places as well, which is fantastic. And hopefully other people will follow suit after that. But until that time, there are going to be a lot of potential issues getting permits with flights, objections and everything else, that it's just another thing on our desk that we don't need to deal with, especially as we haven't had to deal with it for the last 20 odd years.
Mark, it's Mike again. So with Adam from Private Fly, who's not on this, we're both co-chairs of the broker committee, which is part of the EBAA.
Yeah.
So these issues, we have a conduit then whereby we can move through the what's called the AMEC committee of EBAA to highlight these issues. Now I know that Glenn also within the ACA also has the opportunity to talk to EBAA to get this on the agenda. So maybe the two of us, Glenn and myself, could take away from this. We can obviously show that we had, 60 odd participants. There are a lot of people who are concerned with this. We can raise it with the EBAA, and then they have direct lobbying within the European community, and they actually pay lobbyists. So I think that that's probably the best way that we can move forward. It seems to be that, the couple of operators now have got the message. So if we could all perhaps then, if anybody comes back and finds somebody else doing it, if you could then come back to myself and Glenn, we can then feed it through the relevant authorities. And that way we could have a possibility of changing this. And also, Bernhard, one of the things we need to ensure is that you can do inter-UK flights as well. So it's not just the Brits trying to look after themselves; it's everybody trying to help each other out to get back to where we were.
That's exactly it. And Neil made a good point earlier as well, that there is just going to be a little transition period. And I think what we all need to do is just try to make that as less painful as possible, because there will be people making statements. There will be people, trying to teach the Brits a lesson. But actually, as I said earlier, you're not doing yourselves any favors, because we're going to find out that it's operator A or operator B, and that's just going to harm your business. And you object to this one flight, you might lose 20, because that might be 20 flights that I might put with that operator that year. I'm going to try not to book them if they're going to object to my flights. Honestly, screw them. So it is harmful. So there will be this transition period where it all needs to bed in together. But you're right, everybody has to work together. And that is to say that the British people need to accept the flights that Bernhard or any of the European operators that are on here, if they want to do a flight from London to Scotland, well, we shouldn't be objecting to that, and I don't believe that anybody would. So,
Mark, sorry to interrupt. It's Adam from Gamma here. Have we got any examples of British operators objecting as yet?
I could jump in there. I don't think we have a non-objection in the UK. It's just a permit facility.
No,
Yeah,
there is no non-objection process in the UK.
So how does that differ? Forgive me, as somebody who's not been an operator for the last 20 years. How does that differ? How is that different from the objection side of things? So surely if it's a permit.
So they pay a fee to the CAA with the notice, and that gives them an automatic right of permit, generally speaking. However, the other way around, obviously, we have to speak to other operators, or they speak to other operators on behalf, see if we can get an objection or not. And I think the other issue we face as a UK operator, the UK sees the EU as one entity, whereas we have to work with 27 different member states for each bilateral agreement. And I think politically, if we can move on that first to try and get equal rights on a singularity, so we can just deal with one set of security protocols, et cetera, I think that would probably be the first step to make things easier, to potentially move back to where, the status quo was in December.
I can probably sort of come back to that question.
Nigel.
The reality of the situation is that the whole of this matter rests on the back of the trade and cooperation agreement that was signed. it has agreed that that agreement covers the relationship between the UK and the EU as a whole. And that covers the third and fourth freedom rights and scheduled service, etc., are covered within it. Once the agreement then says that thereafter, and everything else has to be agreed individually within the individual countries and can be agreed. So it does allow for higher freedoms to be agreed with individual countries, but that it does state that now then goes to the individual country discussions and bilateral discussions. So the EU is not set up as a single civil aviation authority. Every single country has their own civil aviation authority. They have their own existing third country processes, which the UK is now considered. And most, if not all, as far as I'm aware, are following the same third country process that they were following for a long distance flight coming from China into their country previously. The challenge is that isn't the requests that UK operators are making into Europe, and the amount of connectivity and quantity of flights is very, very different. So the processes that each of those countries have got it set up prior to January the 1st this year aren't really suitable for dealing with the level of traffic and the type of traffic that UK operators have developed over the last 40 years by flying into the EU. So it is a case that I think whether it might sound stupid, but a lot of countries have been taken by surprise by this. So the authorities have been taken by surprise. Now, admittedly, we've had 3 years or whatever it was to plan for this, but until the 1st of January, most of them weren't really looking at what the actual reality was going to be in January. And likewise, from the UK operators' point of view, most of us, the CAA clearly said 18 months ago that permits will be required, whether there's a deal or not a deal. However, no one really looked into the detail of that meant that I'm not going to be able to get a permit for 3 days to fly to that country. Because the assumption is that in modern times, things are instant. We order something on Amazon today and it arrives either before 10 o'clock tonight or tomorrow morning. That's the world we live in. Unfortunately, these processes for third carrier permits were not designed in recent times.
Don't we know it? Definitely feeling that pain.
Yeah, they're not set up for an immediate sort of system. So there's a lot of changes that are needed, and from the feedback we're getting, countries are generally positively looking at understanding that this is an issue and that they need to make changes to the processes to make everything work a bit more smoothly. The challenge is timing, and for operators, time is critical, but it will take time for all 27 countries to individually agree a bilateral agreement with the UK.
Absolutely.
That's a long-winded sentence, but hopefully that sort of gives a bit of background.
We can hope it only happens before the summer kicks in.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point, really valid point. In some ways, the pandemic issues that we're suffering at the moment have probably saved a lot of business, because the low level of flying that is going on at the moment due to country restrictions is allowing a bit of time for operators to get through the processes of getting their approvals in different countries, while there is a low level of flying. Equally, if it was a slightly higher level of flying, we'd probably get a bit of better feel of what actually it will be like. But if most of the discussions can take place prior to the kickoff of normal operations later this year, whenever that may be, then most of the impact of this will be limited. So there is a bit of a silver lining in the low level of flying that's going on at the moment.
Glenn, isn't that, sorry, can I say something? Glenn, isn't there there's a question here though between what we're working towards with the third party, third and fourth freedoms, and where we're talking about fifth freedoms around Europe. I think there's probably two different schools here. And I think, as I understand it, yourself and the BBGA talking to DFT are really only looking at that simple process for getting third and fourth freedoms as a start. So I think there's going to be a bit of a lead time.
No, the third and fourth freedoms have been agreed. So there's no question about whether a UK carrier can operate a third or fourth freedom flight into into an EU country and vice versa. The issue as far as third and fourth freedoms are is the permit systems.
Yes, correct.
So,
but we've also got to move. What this conversation is about is moving forward to the fifth freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my point is, at the minute, we're only clearing the very simple first month issues of permits for what we're even allowed to do anyway.
So not only no. So the fifth freedom and higher freedom flights are involved in all of the bilateral agreements. So the UK team sent out an MOU to all the EU states last week, and that contains the proposal for higher level freedoms as well. So they're certainly covering fifth freedom as a priority, and then finding out what other EU states will look to do reciprocally for higher freedoms than fifth. So
well, that's a good step forward.
It's all being considered, definitely, and we've been pushing on the fifth freedom flights, particularly intra-EU, intra-UK flights for the opposing carriers. It's critical because the EU consideration of there's a big confusion, I suppose is one way of putting it, but there's a dilemma as to, is a flight from Paris to Germany a fifth freedom flight? Well, for an EU carrier, it's not, because they're in the same sort of economic group. For a UK carrier, it is, but at the moment the EU is looking at the EU as a whole. So there's a grey area there that's causing a lot of problems. So you can't operate. I mean, some countries are not allowing operations to come in via another European country, because they consider that to be a higher freedom flight than is currently being allowed. Whereas from a UK operator's perspective, being able to take a flight from the UK to Germany and then onto Spain or onto France, that's a primary requirement, certainly from a private jet and a business aviation point of view, because flights, people take them so that they can move around from a business point of view to do multiple meetings in a day, etc. So it's a big issue at the moment, and that is definitely being tackled in the bilateral discussions.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously another small area that's going to come up in the summertime, and that's the brokers who are not familiar with. Everybody here, I think, is European or British, or we're all the same. But there's going to be a great deal of US business, a great deal of work from Asia, from the Middle East, and everything else when things start unlocking, and you're going to have brokers and operators from the Middle East. You're going to have American clients who historically have booked with a broker, maybe in the past, or they have a relationship with an airline. Now you've got Avinode, which is just a load of tick boxes. I don't know if the operators want to comment on this, but when you're getting the Americans, I remember Bernard, actually, just to relate to this, Bernard once told me that in 1 year, he had 660 different operators, different brokers contact him through Avinode with requests. And that's vast. Not all of them are going to have the knowledge that we all have right now, that understand that there are issues happening right now. And again, that goes back to my point, where if you're not educated, our job as brokers is to sift through the stuff, educate the client, and present something that is feasible and workable. If you have brokers or even airlines that now have the Avinode system that's accessible to them for brokerage from outside of their own fleet, they may not be that knowledgeable about what's going on. So what are they giving to the client? They're not giving their end user, they're not giving their client accurate information, because they might be offering a G-Reg aeroplane to fly between Nice and Germany, let's say, for example, and they might not be able to do it. And again, that's just not providing the right level of service to the client. And that's no fault of their own, other than the fact they're not familiar with the workings of how things are now post-Brexit. So it's almost wondering if there's some sort of educational way that we can maybe, and as much as I love Avinode, they're a necessary evil in our industry. I don't mind saying that. I've always said that. They are a necessary. I can make my cleaner a broker in about 10 minutes. Not a very good one, but she's a broker. That's easy, right? And that's controversial. I don't really care, right? Because that's the way it is. But the fact is that cleaner is going to go and give a G-Reg airplane to our client, and they're not going to actually know whether they can operate that flight or not. So maybe is there some sort of collaboration with Avinode, maybe, where Avinode could even send because they've got a great market reach for everything that they are, this necessary evil, as I call them. They have this great reach in the markets, particularly within America, which have a massive amount of business in Europe during the summer. So maybe is there a collaboration with them that says, listen, make sure that you're able to operate when you are getting these quotes back. These are the new rules within the EU until such times have changed, until bilateral agreements are in place, until we are getting non-objections.
Can I jump in on that, Mark?
Potentially be educated to people outside of our little sphere of UK European operators that live this every day, day in, day out.
Sorry, Mark, I just want to jump in there. Do you not think that it's actually, as much as I don't want to say this, the operator's job to guide the brokers that don't know? Only because we have done a fifth freedom flight. We've done a Malaga to Eindhoven recently.
Okay.
We actually did it last week or the week before. So we managed to get the exemptions in place. But if Avinode is restricting or possibly guiding or giving advice that may or may not be true in all sense, so we can't do it without the permission. However, we can get it done. We did manage to do it, and the broker was very happy. It was a last minute and a lot of paperwork, but that would end up limiting the operator in terms of if it's already not being offered, we're not having the opportunity to at least try. I think definitely needs to be on the operator to be able to say, look, we're going to have a problem here. And I appreciate fully brokers, we've lost a couple of fights because we said, look, we're going to have to work on the permit. And they were like, well, X, Y, and Z don't need a permit. We're going to have to book them. And we totally understood. It's not nice, but it is what it is. So I think maybe if we think from an operator's perspective and say, as an operator, we guide the broker or said person, client coming through with the correct information at the time, at least it gives us a fighting chance, because as a UK operator at the moment, we're bleeding, and that's the honest truth.
No,
Oz, you make a good point there, Oz, because Avinode did start listing the requirement for a permit for the US aircraft about 5 or 6 years ago, based on the very same principles we're discussing. Yeah. And I think Oz's position is good, because if you ask them to put that in place, permit required, then I think many non-British brokers would just dismiss the British operator and go for the one where there's no box saying permit required. So again,
you should also let us as operators quote it as subject to permits.
Yes.
It's not fair on us being penalised. I completely agree with us. I mean, Little Jet's done 2 fifth freedom flights this week. We can do it. We're not saying we can't. What we're saying is, if you want to book it with us, it is a lot of hard work. But just give us a few days to understand what we're being asked of by the certain CAAs that we're going to, and you'll be surprised. We can usually make it work, but sometimes we can't. But just give us a chance, and we will try and make it work.
No, I agree with that. As long as I think if the operators in the UK do work together on that to make sure that we are giving the right information, because otherwise, it's a case of generating that new business, and you don't want to be offering something that you can't get. I know that a lot of operators get very, very busy, and brokers get very, very busy as well. And they, the amount of times I've sent a request through Avinode with massive asterisks on it, asking a question, and I've really put like 1,000 asterisks, and then right, by the way, can you confirm you're able to make the early departure? And the operator just go send it back, because it's easy, because they're busy. And then you get it back and it's not right, because then, oh, didn't you see my question? Oh no, sorry, I didn't read that. It works in the same way when an operator is sending something to a broker, that very often the broker maybe isn't reading earliest departure 1400. Mm-hmm. And then they come and go, oh yeah, great, want to book that, 10 o'clock please. And go, no, it's 1400. I saw it, I'm like, oh, I didn't read your note. So I think maybe if we are doing that, it might be more useful in terms of being helpful as a British operator to our friends outside of the EU as well, if it's highlighted not just in the notes section, because honestly, it's really easily missed. Because Avinode tends to do this great big long thing, and it's got lots of disclaimers and all this rubbish on it when you get it as a broker. And if we read every single part of every single bit, you might not pick up on something that's actually quite pertinent. So maybe if it was sent as a separate email, as a message. I know you've got a system where you can actually message after the flight, after you've quoted, you can send a secondary message to say, oh, by the way, just to let you know. Do you think that might be useful? I mean,
that's probably the more ideal situation, to be able to then send a message straight after to say, look, this is what the issue we face, and we'll do our best. I think that's probably the way forward with that.
Yeah,
Mark, sorry to jump in. I've got a 4:30, so I think we need to wrap up. Glenn,
Yeah.
can you and I get together after this? We should form an alliance to see how we can go in and include the EBAA on all of this and their lobbying. So we'll have a call, and then maybe you could take it upon yourself or with Mark then just to give an update to everybody how things are progressing. So sorry, I'm going to have to leave, guys.
That's all right, mate. Thanks very much indeed for your input. And very up for that. I see Lindsay's just messaged everyone.
Can I just speak to Lindsay on that? I don't know when that came into force, but we lost the flight because we didn't apply within the 48 hours, outside the 48 hours. It was impossible because the charter contract was actually booked within the 48 hours. It was a very good Tel Aviv to Nice to get into France for another flight. And as you know, empty legs and optimized legs make a fortune for operators. And we lost out on that because we had no objection. It was just purely because we weren't within the 48 hours. And you know, that was a very difficult to swallow.
Can I concur with? Can I just answer, Glenn? Yeah, I concur everything with what Glenn's been saying. Obviously, we're having the same sort of discussions with our DFT negotiating team. But the last feedback that we have is that people are being put off for applying, and you mustn't be put off because quite often the time limits they give are much, much lower. So persevere with it, keep going. Where you have them objected to, we need to see firm evidence of that because they can't act on this. Our CAA and our DFT negotiator team cannot act on it unless it's firm evidence. So we need to see details of flights being cancelled, business being lost. And you can't do that if you give up before you even make the application because it says 48 hours. So we're at quite a critical point with negotiations, as Zaka has said, as Glenn has said. We, with the DFT negotiating team, we're working really, really hard to talk to each of these 27 member states to come up with their bilateral agreements. We have to be careful not to derail what they're doing because of the work that we're feeding. Both associations are feeding in all the feedback that our members are giving us, and they form part of their discussions when they're talking to that member state. So it's really important that we don't derail the work that's already been done.
Yeah, no, I'd second that, Lindsay. And the one thing I was going to raise over the whole thing, and as Oz was saying, you've got to remember that there is nothing stopping UK operators from operating any type of flight in between European countries. It is purely down to the permissions and permits being issued. So the trade agreement doesn't stop a UK operator flying to places in Europe. They are perfectly allowed to. They've just got to ask permission of those states. Some states have non-objection, some don't. So you've got to just make those applications and make sure the UK operators have that opportunity to try and bid for the business is a golden message. And when you do come up against an objection or a state that's saying, no, you can't do that type of flight, please do feed that back to us or the BBJ, whichever medium. We're both going to get it back to the right people in the right place. We've seen over the last 2 weeks, I know I've dealt with several occurrences that I've forwarded through where an operator's been said they can't operate a flight. I've been able to push that through to the DFT, and they have within 24 hours resolved that with the country, and that operator has got the permit. Now it does take a bit of time. So if the flight's in 2 hours' time, it's going to be a challenge. But if you've got a little bit of lead time on a flight, then there's a good chance that by using the authorities that they're working very openly, they're being very approachable, and they're working very hard. We can get that discussion taking place quickly to see if they can improve on the current situation. And that has, as I say, at least 2 countries over the last week, we've managed to get that move forward. So it's definitely worth keep persevering with operations that you're trying to do.
Well, that's cool. So does anybody else, because we're supposed to be wrapping up about now, but does anybody else have any questions that they might like to ask, or is everybody clear on how they might go about dealing with any issues that do come around?
Sorry, Mark, one more further thing. With regards to the operators, obviously to all of you guys and operators, if you ever do get an objection or anything like that, do ask us as brokers with Mark as well and a couple of the other guys, because our buying power might just be a lot more like what happened with this operator in Europe. Just always ask, just be honest and be like, we can't get it because we've been objected to, and then see if us as brokers can step in. Although I know we don't want to do that all the time, but just, you know, we might have some better buying power because they might object to X, v Y. Just an idea.
It's a good point. It's a good point, one way for you. Absolutely, indeed. And you know, it's the difficulty that it's the balance, isn't it? You don't want to go upsetting and start lording it up over the operator because that doesn't help our relationship. But then the operator, if they've got nothing to gain from it other than just being a bit obstructive, then that actually doesn't help anybody at all, and least of all that operator. So I think that's kind of the watchword is, and as I say, this whole thing's called the collaborative experience, I suppose, but that's really what we need to get back to. I think I said at the very, very beginning, we were all singing the same song for a long time. Nobody's forgotten the words. And that's just the way it's got to go forward as well, because it's the only way anything's ever going to get done properly is if we all work together, whether it's the operator to operator with broker to broker, whether it's operator to broker or objector to broker. We've all got a part to play to make sure that things go back to the way they were in terms of permits. And aside from the legislative side of things that Glenn and Lindsay and people like that are working on, which is invaluable, that will tick those boxes eventually. In the meantime, there's got to be a collaborative effort to ensure that while those processes are taking place, that we are helping each other to make these things happen. And to say that even goes to whether it's Bernard flying from London to Glasgow, it doesn't make a difference. We're all in this together, and it's hard enough work as it is, let alone with anybody sticking some obstacles in the way that are a bit of a pain in everybody's backside.
Just going on from what Freddie said, though, obviously let us operators first decide what we're going to do, because you know operators do also talk to each other. So give us a chance, because we don't want to affect our relationships with certain operators, because a lot of them, as you know, run FBOs themselves. So if we're going to Paris and we've annoyed someone there who run an FBO there, you know, it damages our relationship with them. We don't want that. So we might say to you first, look, we've been objected to, but just give us 2 hours. Just let us talk to them first, and then let the operator decide what they're going to do with the other operators before the broker gets involved. Just give us a chance to fix our relationship first, please.
Yep.
And don't forget the trade associations are here to help with that as well. So if we are sort of independent, so we don't have those sort of the relationships to break in many ways. Hopefully we are seen as a bit of independence, so we can often step in and get the right people to look at it.
Can I just add, Glenn, Lindsay, are you able to put your email addresses in the chat box?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Certainly. I just want to finish with one last comment from a trade association, and that is when we ask our DFT negotiating colleagues how long will it take for bilateral agreements to be completed, the answer is generally as long as a piece of string. However, some are hopeful to get done as quickly as a week. Others could take 2 to 3 months. So we're not looking at an unachievable goal here. It just really depends on how those discussions go. And we have given the team a priority list of countries that we believe that would affect our sector quickest. So deal with these countries first. But equally, we've asked them to look at easy wins to set a precedence. So where you've had an easy win with a minor country, use that as a template for working towards your discussions when you're looking at one of our priority lists as well. So it's really just a plea to not lose faith. The work is continuing, and it might not take as long as you think it might.
And amen to that, absolutely. So I think, Lindsay, you're just adding your thing before we wrap it up. You're adding your email address, I think, there. But unless anybody else has any questions, then I just have to say thanks very much indeed. I know we're all...
Thank you, Mark, for doing this.
Sorry, mate?
I said thank you.
No, always welcome. But no, thanks ever so much for everybody coming. I know everybody's busy, and I know it's stressful times and all of that. But I'm very, very grateful for your being here. And yeah, if there's anything that you need from me, most people have got my email address. If not, I'll put mine in here as well. Oh, hello, Phil. You're right.
Yeah, Phil. Very quiet there, isn't he?
It's not like Phil Brockwell.
One more thing. I've got an idea, Mark. I've got an idea.
Of course.
Sorry, I've been dog walking. I'm just not really dressed for this.
what if you create a WhatsApp group with all of us to make sure we're in touch? If we have any questions, then we can ask questions to all of us. If we have any problems with a broker, operator, whoever, then we can also share. Maybe we know someone you don't know. And then we can help each other talking to, you know, from the other angle with the person to solve problems until the governments will, you know, sign some papers. Yeah. So maybe
I absolutely love that idea. I think Hannah, would you mind reaching out to everybody on here just to make sure we've got their mobiles? Anybody who's willing to be involved in that group, then Hannah can send out a message to everybody who was on this call. And if, obviously no pressure, but if anybody wants to be involved in that group, or then feel free, happy to run that, not a problem at all. And as I say, it's just an area of communication. That's a really smart idea, Greg. Love it, absolutely love it.
I would say, don't forget, again, I've said it once before, but don't forget to use your associations have got access. I mean, we've got access to over 250 different companies. So if you do have those questions, sharing it through the association is probably even bigger pool, and probably more, we can get the right information. So we're sitting here ready to help.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay, thank you guys. I'll see you next time.
Very much, really. Thanks ever so much indeed. And yeah, I don't know, I should end with the weather, shouldn't I, really? But there we are. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed again, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, everyone.